recently. And we have a community member who's going to demo the doc contribution that he did recently on patching Kubernetes secrets using podspec definition. And we'll have a dedicated a Q&A session. So let's get into it. Would like to extend welcome to everybody who's here. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to anybody and everybody who's joined here. This call is definitely for you. We are here to share latest about Radius, what's happening behind the scenes, and what's upcoming. So please utilize the chat to ask any questions that you might have related to Radius. Also, if you have questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand. We'll unmute your mic and you can ask the question. We will also have a dedicated question and answer session at the end. You can ask any question related to Radius. It may not be like relevant to the topic that we are talking about in this community call, but if you have any feedback, questions, ideas, or concerns, please feel free to let us know. Next up, we have a Google group for all the email announcements about Radius. So for folks who are new here, please join the Google group. We won't spam you much other than sending some regular updates on Radius release and community call invites. So please do join the group to get all the announcements about Radius. We would also like to share some updates on the Radius roadmap. Would like to pass it on to Will Sai from the Radius team to share what's happening on the Radius roadmap side. Over to you, Will.
Thank you, Reshma. Hey, everybody. As Reshma said, my name is Will Sai. I am a product manager on the Radius maintainership team, and I'd love to talk to you about kind of what's changed over the past month in terms of our roadmap, which actually hasn't been a whole lot, but we'll communicate some of the small changes that we've made based on feedback we've gotten from customers, etc. So the delivered projects remain the same as last time. We've delivered the initial dashboard. We've delivered the application graph API. Over here, we have in developing a item called private registry authentication for recipes. If you were here in the previous community call, you might have heard the announcement of the private Terraform modules being feature being available. We're currently working on finishing up the functional test to wrap up that particular feature, and then we do plan to move forward with implementing private registry authentication for bicep modules as well. So you can stay tuned for that. That's coming down the pipeline. The other thing that we're actively developing is workload identity support for the Azure provider, and this is specifically to support the new feature or new-ish feature that Azure launched for workload identity. It just provides a much more secure and better experience in terms of role management, and we're happy to add this support. And then the same feature set for AWS will also be in the pipeline and be prioritized for us, so you can also expect that to come in a future release. And then in terms of what's on the horizon, in terms of what we're looking at designing, we're working on several Terraform recipes enhancements. The biggest of which is we've done with 4 out of 6 of the enhancements we'd like to make. The remaining ones are we want to be able to allow for any Terraform provider to be configured within your Terraform recipes. And then we also want to containerize the Terraform recipes runtime, so that it becomes more modular and more extensible, more maintainable going forward. And the other item that is currently going through kind of the final phases of product definition is GitOps-based deployments. So we want Radius to work well and support some of the very popular GitOps-based deployment tools that we have in the open source kind of market today. and that's including Flux and Argo CD would be our first starting points. So we'll be starting design on this soon, and the design will be posted into our design repo. So do encourage everybody to stay engaged with that when it does come through. And then sort of on the bigger horizon of what's currently on the product kind of radar to in terms of product specifications and product definition, we're working on speccing out the serverless container runtime item. And we've heard set from the community that, serverless container runtimes like Azure Container Apps or Amazon Elastic Container Service. These are all things that we're going to be looking at and trying to figure out how we can support those within Radius so that we can diversify the number of compute platforms that we can support within Radius. And then we're also going to look at recipes for any kind of resource and user-defined resource types, and these will help add to the extensibility of Radius and Radius recipes. And then also connecting to pre-provisioned resources to allow for better compatibility for incremental adoption and things like that. So those are the items that are mainly on the radar for product definition next. And you can expect to see those and the items in designing and the items in developing coming up in the next Radius releases. Now we have a very extensive list of proposed projects and projects that we've accepted into the backlog. So feel free to visit this link on this slide here, aka.ms Radius Roadmap. Go into there. These are all publicly available, and you can click into each individual roadmap item, and you can upvote. You can make comments on it to give us feedback if you'd like to participate in the design discussions. Those updates will be added into each tracking item in this list. So please do engage with us on the roadmap. We love hearing from the community and building your feedback into the features. So back to you, Reshma.
Thanks, Will. Thanks for sharing those updates on the Radius roadmap. So please bookmark this link, and if you have any feedback that you wanted to share on these items, please do share that with us. So I'm going to move on to the next section, which is going to be about the CNCF approval, the sandbox approval, and the progress that we've made so far. Over to Jonathan to share some
Thanks,
updates there.
Reshma. Yeah, great. And as Reshma said at the outset, we hit a big milestone for the project, in large part because of the contributions from this community in terms of getting Radius approved as a sandbox project. I'm going to talk more about kind of the significance of that. But first, I wanted to give a little bit of context about kind of how this group works with CNCF, how the Azure Incubations team works with CNCF, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this Radius approval. So I think most of the folks on this call know that this Azure open source incubations team that Radius started in is super interesting in that we get to work across Microsoft and the open source community to identify and incubate technologies that we hope will be a positive for the industry as a whole. So we don't just think about, in this organization, Microsoft customers or Azure customers. We think about the industry at large. And partly because of that mission, our primary ship vehicle is open source software. And as this group knows, if you're going to succeed with open source software, you need to build vibrant communities. You need to have an open governance model. And that makes CNCF a great partner for this organization. This slide shows the portfolio of this organization and where some of the different projects are in terms of their partnership with CNCF. So if you're familiar with the Cloud Native Compute Foundation process, projects go through essentially 3 stages. There's sandbox, which is sort of the entry phase. There's a second phase called incubating, and then finally graduation. So as a project gets more contributors and more adoption and grows their community, they move through those 3 stages. So for this organization, if you look at something like CADA, which is focused on auto scaling of Kubernetes clusters, that got to that third stage graduating last year. Dapper, which we've talked about a lot in this forum, got to that second stage incubating in the fall of last year. Copacetic, which is a new project focused on patching containerized software in a way that's a lot faster and easier, especially to respond to security exploits, was approved in that first stage sandbox last September. And then we had this great milestone, as Reshma mentioned, just last month, April, where Radius was approved as a sandbox project. So CNCF's been a great partner for us, not just for Radius, but for a bunch of other projects that we're focused on. Reshma, if you go to the next slide, here I'll talk a little bit more about the actual progress around Radius specifically. So folks on this call, you may recall that back in October last year, Mark Rusinovich announced Radius at the Linux Foundation Member Summit. And right before that presentation, we submitted Radius for consideration as a sandbox project. If you follow this link, you can see the actual formal submission that we made at the time. The way that works, if you're familiar with the CNCF, is a project like Radius gets adopted by what's referred to as a technical advisory group. In our case, we're most closely associated with the app delivery tag in CNCF. So right before KubeCon in November, Ryan Waite and Ryan Nowak and I were fortunate enough to present to the tag and introduce that group to Radius. We had a great conversation with them. You can check out that meeting and details at the link listed here. Then in April of this year, the CNCF Technical Oversight Committee reviewed and voted on Radius formally, and it was approved the middle of last month. This is a big deal for Radius project and for the Radius community. If you look at that submission, one of the things that you'll see is a lot of context we provided about the engagement from the Radius community, how active folks in this group have been on Discord. The hundreds of contributions that have been made by the community on documentation and on bug fixes and new features. A lot of the credibility that comes for a project like Radius in the eyes of CNCF is how vibrant and engaged is this community. So we're really across the Radius team indebted to the community for helping show how committed this group is to helping evolve and innovate on the Radius platform. So thanks to this group for helping get Radius over the hump for this approval. Since that approval, we've been doing a bunch of cool work in the Radius PM team to onboard formally. So you get approved, and then there's a bunch of work you do to become part of the CNCF for a given project. And this is kind of where the rubber meets the road. So in terms of showing Radius commitment to open governance and open source community across the board, so Will Tsai just submitted the PR to make the Radius project and GitHub formally part of CNCF. So the project and the code that goes with it moves from being an independent GitHub organization to being part of CNCF. So that's awesome to see that. Reshma's been working on transferring the RadApp.io website and domain formally to the CNCF. Then there's lots of other work around things like our logo and branding. So we're donating those assets to the CNCF formally as well. Any sort of progress that you want to monitor about our steps here, the links are available. We expect to be finished with the onboarding steps this week. And then we'll shift our focus to that second phase of the CNCF process, incubating and hopefully eventually the graduated third phase of CNCF approval. So thanks again to everybody for the support here, for the engagement with Radius. Please keep up the great work, and we'll continue to keep you posted on our engagement with CNCF.
Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for sharing those updates. So the main part of the call is like sharing updates about the latest release that has happened. So I'm gonna be sharing some updates on the .33 release. One of the big thing to highlight here is the doc contribution that came in from one of our community member, Nick Wienham. So he contributed a how-to guide on patching existing Kubernetes secrets using podspec definition. We are very excited to see this community contribution come through, um, because it's not just like a community member experimenting with things. They are just like contributing it back to the community as it's really valuable content for everybody to pick up and share. So we have Nick in the call as well, who would be sharing his experience and going through the how to guide that he contributed to Radius. Next up, we have enabled code coverage on the Radius repo. So you will now be able to like see the test coverage reports and results in all the pull requests going forward. So in our last community call, folks reported about the dashboard permission issue where the app graph was not showing up in the dashboard. They were hitting a 403. The fix for that went in this release. So please upgrade to the latest release. You should not be able to like see that issue anymore. Also, if you hit any other issues related to dashboard, please let us know. We'll be able to help. And also, a major part of our time went in fixing making bug fixes and making some engineering improvements as well. We fixed a bunch of bugs and experience issues based on all the user feedback that you have all been submitting. Please make sure to continue to log those issues in GitHub and discuss with the community in Discord as well. We also made a significant investment on our engineering systems, more focused on making our test framework more robust, improving test resiliency, and also making some improvements on our release pipelines. We believe that these investments will help us like move faster in the future. So thanks to the Radius team as well. So that's about the release highlights. This is the entire change log for .33 release. Thanks to everyone who contributed to the release. Just wanted to like highlight some of the community contributions that went into the release as well. Would like to highlight community contributor Gary Taylor for contributing to a lot of good first issues. He picked up, I think, 2 or 3 good first issues in the last release and contributed to Radius. Made some user experience improvements on the RAD groups with CLI command, wherein the success message is like clearly called out to the user. And there was a bug with the CA file path for Windows while installing Radius. He helped fix that as well. A big shout out to Gary Taylor here. And also a big shout out, as I mentioned, to Nicholas Beenham as well for contributing the how-to guide on patching the Kubernetes secrets. So talking about the contribution, I would also want to highlight the Good First Issues link here. So these links cover the list of issues that are like great items to pick up as a new contributor. Please take a look at them and grab one to get started on like contributing to Radius. So the first issue covers all the issues from all the Good First issues from the Radius repositories. So it covers like issues from the CLI and other like components within Radius. And if you are interested on the UI side and if you wanted to contribute on the dashboard side, please use the second link, which covers the good first issues on the dashboard side as well. The other thing that I wanted to call out here is these good first issues cover some information on where exactly you need to make the change and things like that. If you feel you need like clarity around like the details mentioned in the good first issue, where exactly you need to go and make the change or what kind of information you require to clear clarity around the fix, right? Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can add those questions as like comments in the issues itself. We are like regularly triaging these issues in our triage meetings to see how we can empower the community to contribute. So please let us know. And if you need immediate help, you can like utilize the Discord channel as well. So there's a contributing channel in Discord where you can pose these questions and the Radius team would be able to help. Um, so that's on the good first issues. So yeah, so it's going to be the demo time. I'm going to pass it on to Nick to talk about his contribution. Over to you, Nick.
Thanks, Rishma. Let me just quickly share my screen here, and I'll start with the page itself. So one of the reasons I sort of did this, I came into this problem where I was trying to sort of almost like crowbar using secrets from the Kubernetes environment into the containers. And I was sort of running into troubles. I was trying to sort of work it the same way that the certificates were managed, and that wasn't working. So I sort of reached out to some of the Radius teams, say, hey, have you guys got any ways to do this? And so they sort of pointed me in the direction of using podspec, and there's, like you can see, there's already an example of how to use podspec to sort of patch. So using that as a sort of starting point, I sort of worked down the sort of idea of using this to sort of inject these secrets as environment variables into my containers. So just sort of looking down this, and it follows the same sort of structure and that. And one thing I will say is that working within the Radius docs was really nice and easy. The way that the repo set up and the contributing guides made this a sort of really painless process. So I appreciate that, and thank you to the sort of Radius maintainers, for providing that experience. So as we sort of work through this, I will bring up a little demo, and we'll just do a copy and paste while we sort of work through this. So if we take the first one, and this is just so I can prove that this does work as well. But it's not called build bicep. I changed it. So we can run the first command. We'll just build that sort of first bicep file and deploy it into sort of a demo application, into a development environment. And as you can see, kind of deploys away.
I'm still seeing the doc page, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, that's because my bad. Let me change the sharing to my screen instead of.
Okay.
How's that? That should be better.
Got it now.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
No problem.
That's all right. I'm still waiting for it to deploy anyway, so we're still good. So while this is deploying, I just created a simple app using a basic container. I think the foundation was just the sort of standard Nginx, and deployed it into an environment, with basically just bare bones. And this is the curse of live demos, because this happened much faster before. Right, let me kill this and start it again. I'll give it another. If not, I'll just walk through it, because I did run through this 10 minutes ago before, not 10 minutes, about half an hour ago before the call started.
While we're given that time, Nick, this is a kind of contribution, as Reshma was kind of alluding to, that I really appreciate, because if you run into a problem, you have a sense that other people would likely run into the same problem. Sharing documentation of it so folks aren't reinventing the wheel every time is super valuable. So thanks for taking the initiative to document this, and hope, and I'm sure we'll see others doing the same, but it really accelerates the community when we document as we go like this. So this is super helpful.
Let me just stuck and pending. Let me just, I'll talk through the document. It's probably easier than me trying to fix my development environment live. So we just deploy the app in the container. We grab the pods that are running, and we can check the environment variables at this point. I then created a secret, and we're just using my secret key and my password type values. We can verify that that secret's created. And then this is the bit that I sort of was a little bit more creative around. We create that sort of runtime piece where we patch the secrets into the container. So they get mounted as a volume, and then that volume gets mounted into the container with those secrets. One thing I will fix, and I noticed this because this tripped me up. I set host network to true here. That's not a good idea, as it will limit the connectivity from your containers. So I will issue another quick PR just to flip that back to false. You can then sort of deploy your demo and grab the pods from that demo, and then just run an exec, kube control exec, and grep for your secret, and you should see your secret. And then, as always, clean up your demo. So let me just go back and see if this is. It's still stuck pending. That's why this is.
Did you create the secret?
Yeah, I've noticed this before. Sometimes I get containers and they get stuck in pending state, and I don't know why. So I'll have to sort of go and investigate that. But the secret's definitely there. Right, so you should see my. So there's the secret there. So anyway, that's for me to troubleshoot later. Sorry. It still does work, I promise you, because as you can see, I did it before. And if anyone's got any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I think it's a pretty cool example of we don't yet have the native capability to mount a secret as files on disk. Like that's a feature that we're going to add in the future, but it's kind of cool that you can just reach under the hood and do it anyway if you know how to do it in Kubernetes. So
yeah, it was kind of along those lines of what my next contribution would be, was maybe to sort of take that idea and take it that next step further, and maybe adapt the secrets resource to be able to mount secrets as well.
that would be really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. That would be super cool to see. All right. Thanks, Nick, for sharing your experience. I'm going to bring back the presentation here. Yeah, I think we are towards the end of the call here. So just wanted to quickly highlight some of the links. So you can engage with us on Discord. For people who are new here, here's a link to our Discord channel. You can engage with us there, ask questions. If you need troubleshooting assistance, please get in touch with the Radius team. Start her GitHub repo, and as I mentioned earlier in the call, please join the radapp.io for latest Radius news. We'll be back soon with our next community call date. If you have any specific topics that you would like to see in the next community call, please let us know. And if you have feedback on about Radius or about this call, please let us know what you think as well. So with that, I'm going to move into the Q&A session. So if folks have any questions, please raise your hand. I can unmute you, and the Radius team can help with your questions. Chat as well. Thanks, Kristen, for highlighting the Brew tab for installing and upgrading Radius. Thanks, Jason, for sharing the dog contribution from Nick. Also, are there anything else that the Radius team wants to share with the community? Cool. If there's nothing else, yeah, we can wind up the call. Thanks everyone for joining the community call. Hoping to see you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks, all.
Reshma. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.